Hey gang, what's up? Welcome back here to another edition of Intuitive Angling, and really appreciate you guys checking today's video out and watching it. And if I sound a little hoarse today, I'm sort of fighting off a cold here, so have to bear with me through the video today. Guys, today we're going to be talking about the impact that COVID had on our bass fisheries. We've talked about this just briefly in the past, and I've heard people talk about it, but I want to dig into this a little bit deeper today, because if you guys saw the video I did yesterday on how one of the top bass lakes in Missouri, Stockton Lake here, has completely went down the tubes, I got thinking about it, and I got hearing a lot of comments from people, saying the same thing about the direct correlation about how devastating that COVID has been to our fisheries as far as the quality of the fisheries due to the fishing pressure here. And I've known this, or I've at least, thought about this a little bit in the past, but it really got me thinking about it a lot, because the last 2 years fishing at Table Rock Lake and Stockton Lake here in Missouri, I fish them a ton. They're close to my house. And without a doubt, something is freaking seriously off with them, big time. I mean, I've fished them both since the 70s, and it's not just some type of little, weather pattern deal or some type of off year or off season deal. Something is seriously wrong with not only those lakes, but a bunch of lakes across the country. I think what's happened, let me give you guys an example here. I remember the week after, the shutdown, after the pandemic started, I went down to Table Rock Lake. I was actually going down there this was sort of when my YouTube channel started. I was going to go down there to film a couple videos, and it was during the week. And I think this was in May or something. I can't remember exactly when it was. But anyway, this ramp that I went to down there, you guys may know it, it's the Shell Knob ramp at Table Rock Lake. And if you go there on the weekend, yeah, there'll be, 10, 15 boats there. But normally if you go there in the week, there's just a couple. There's two to five boats, and trucks during the week there at any given time. I got down there, guys, like I said, this was about a week after, the shutdown, and I'm driving in there. It's about 9 o'clock in the morning, and I started noticing a bunch of trucks with trailers parked on the road. And this ramp there that I'm talking about, there's a lower level ramp that probably holds, I don't know, you could probably squeeze 30, 40 boats in there. And then there's an upper level ramp too, about the same. Both upper and lower, this was during the week on Wednesday, both the upper and lower ramps were full, and people were parked up, lined forever on the main highway after they launched their boats. I have never seen anything like it ever since I've been fishing Table Rock since 1969. And it was like that for the next year. It's like every time that you'd go fishing during the week, there would just be a freaking buttload of boats anywhere you went. I don't care if you went to Grand Lake, if you went to, Stockton Lake, if you went to Bull Shoals, whatever. Boats, 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 boats. And here's my theory on what happened, because like I said, I've noticed it for the last 2 years, an unbelievable difference in the quality of the fishing throughout the year. But here's my theory on it, what happened. I think that during those shutdown, the height of the shutdown for like a year and a half or something like that, I really believe that millions and millions of bass were flayed out and ate during that time. All over the country, everywhere out there. I think that our lakes took a devastating hit on the numbers during that 2-year period. Then they have not rebounded from that. They just haven't. And on top of the other tournament pressure, I mean, the tournaments have increased tenfold in the last 2 years down there too. So the combination of the, just the recreational fishermen, the meat eaters that have been keeping everything, along with the tournaments, it has reduced the bass populations. There's no doubt in my mind. And I don't care what the conservation departments say or anything like that. The reality of the situation can be based upon how many fish are catching. I'll give you guys another example here. This is just a microcosm. I'm sure that you guys can tell me the same stories about where you guys at. 2 weeks ago, one of my good friends, he's a guide down at Table Rock Lake, and he had a club tournament down there, and they got like 15 guys in their club. And this dude is old school. He doesn't have any fancy equipment. 2D sonar, doesn't even have GPS. He just, old school, no live scope like that. In his club tournament out there, He caught one fish in the tournament. Now, this is a guy that knows the lake like the back of his hand. He's in his 60s. He's been fishing it since the late 1960s. He knows every freaking great spot on the lake, you know, one end to the other, 12 months out of the year. I mean, he is a freaking hammer down there. He caught one fish, and everybody in his club that caught anything out there, they were all live scoping the fish, every one of them. And it made me realize that the bass that use at least half of the water in the lake out there. And this is, I don't mean this to be a anti-live scope video. I'm trying to tie it into COVID here. What the thing is half of those bass, I just think they're gone. I mean, I just think that a lot of those bass that use that water 10 foot or less that are caught by traditional means are simply gone because of COVID. I think that a lot of those people, the average bass anglers that don't fish offshore and don't fish deep, they just cleaned them out, man. They just cleaned all of the shallow water fish out all over the place. And the only people that catch them anymore are out off the bank chasing those live scope fish. So, you know, what can you do about this? This is like one of those things that you couldn't stop. I mean, it's not like we could, you know, put a brakes on it. We didn't know how bad that pandemic was going to be at the time. I mean, I understand the reason for the shutdown, but at the same time, it hasn't recovered from that, and it hasn't had a chance to recover simply because of the fishing pressure that we have on the lakes around here, primarily a lot of them through tournaments. Now when you're talking about bass mortality, I mean, you got a lot of different issues. You got, you know, bass mortality from the meat hunters, which there are a ton of meat eaters. Guys, don't ever think that just because somebody fishes for bass, they practice catch and release, because they don't. There is a ton of guys that will not throw them back. They think that if they're going to spend $50 for gas, they want to bring something home for it, and they put the knife to them. And then you have the other segment of the population of the delayed mortality from tournaments. Now, the delayed mortality from the tournaments comes in a lot of different forms. It comes from hauling them around in a live well all day, bouncing on the sides, losing their slime coat, guys flipping them over the side of the boat and letting them flop around on carpet, having them gut hooked, having them, you know, hooked in the gills, something like that. And a tremendous amount of bass are dying from barotrauma issues from live scope. I mean, even somebody knows how to fizz a bass, they still have barotrauma issues where their internal organs in their eyes are damaged when they get pulled up out of deep water. They may swim down fine, but they don't last. So we have got to really, I think, to acknowledge this situation for what it is. I mean, we're going to have to, the conservation departments are going to have to step into this. And you can't go by the shocking studies or something like that. You have to go by, and a lot of times you can't even go by the angler studies, because how do you know somebody's being honest? When I've had conservation guys, you know, stop me before, it's like, well, how many bass did you catch today? And I'll tell them how many keepers. How many people out there aren't telling them the truth for whatever reason? That is not a legitimate way to study the bass populations. The only way that you can really study legitimately a bass population in a lake is you have to go down through any type of major tournament standing, like from the top to the bottom there. And right off the bat, you ignore the top 25% of the tournament, because those are outliers. The bottom 75% of the tournament is the reality of the situation. And the biggest reality is the bottom 25%, because they're closer to the average angler. And then you have to ask those people how many of those fish were caught with live scope or forward-facing sonar, because then that eliminates half of those populations of fish that live out in open waters or roamers and are inaccessible to most anglers out there. And then you get an accurate number of the quality of the fishing. But I can tell you guys right now, I don't have to have studies. I don't have to have shocking surveys like there. I know from my own fishing experiences and the fishing experiences from my buddies that have been fishing as long as I have and understand and know, and they've seen it. It's not like they're 20 years old and they've got 5 seasons underneath their belt fishing. I'm talking about dudes that have 5 decades of fishing, and they've seen the progression or the deterioration in fishing. So anyway, we got to do something, man. We've got to start taking some actions. I think one of the first things out there is, I think there's got to be a lot stricter, you know, creel limits, maybe slot limits, a huge reduction in tournaments. I mean, I think the tournaments need to be regulated a lot tighter. They're way too free with issuing permits right now. And we got to start taking care of our fisheries, because like I said, what I have seen the last 2 years fishing here in the state of Missouri, it does not make you want to go fishing as much, simply because the fishing just sucks a lot of times out there. And it's not because you're not keeping up with the times, you're not live scope, and it's not any of that out there. It's the fact that the fish are just not there in the numbers what they used to be. So anyway, just wanted to throw that out there, guys. Let me know if you experienced the same thing. I'd be curious, and talk later. See you.